Okay, testing. Testing. Okay, we don't want to let this one slip away. We're going to make sure we're running tests because this 5th lecture nails it. This is the culmination of a 5-part series of lectures where we're building to a big crescendo of, what do you call it, where you have a lot of, prominence and, what do you call it when everybody says, oh my God, so profound. And believe me, this 5th chapter, it nails it. It just as promised, this 5th chapter delivers. But let me just say this. I've got this whole thing lined out, because I wanted to really delve in a little bit more where the prisoners laugh at the guy who comes back for them. And I was going to find so much good, I'm going to lecture about how profound of an experience that was for that man. And, the way that guy runs back in, it reminded me of the way the Sadducees and the Pharisees, the guy runs back in and says, guys, check it out, man. I have found something that's going to blow your freaking mind. You're going to be so happy. Let me unhook you. And they're like, hey, wait, no, don't unhook me. The first guy, the freed prisoner comes up to the first guy and he goes, no, don't unhook me. What, are you crazy? I'm standing right here. And they're like, what is this guy, a jabroni over here? And the prisoner who came back in, he's kind of becoming a philosopher. He says, guys, I want to take you out there and show you. I got to unhook you. And they're like, don't unhook us. They're like unison. And he's like, guys, you want to come and see this? And like, oh, what a fool. What a moron. What a joke. So can't you see I'm getting ready to look at a shadow? I've been waiting for an hour here. I'm waiting to look at a shadow go across the wall. I mean, that's so great you can't believe it. The shadow's pretty much going to come out pretty soon. You got to get away from us. And the philosopher guy, he was like, hey, guys, let me unhook you. I'm going to show you something that's 50 times better than a shadow going across the wall. It reminded me of those Sadducees and the Pharisees that when Jesus came up, Jesus was like, guys, let me, don't kill me. I'm going to, believe me, you're going to want to be here when this stuff happens. When this biat comes true, when all this happens, and the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and Jesus was trying to say, listen, I'll do a miracle. I'll do a miracle right now. I'll do a miracle in front of you. I'll do a miracle that can be reported to you. I'll raise the dead. And they're like, whatever. It's part of their tricks. So, believe me, this 5th chapter has it all. It has the deep, profound meanings. It has it gets a little sexy. It gets a little crazy. But before we get started with the lecture, I got to tell you, me and the man, we just got in this big beef. And it almost ruined the whole culmination for me of the whole series of lectures because me and the man, we got into it. It was kind of a sidetractual thing. And here's, I just want to share with you for a second, as an aside, before we get to the lecture, that the lecture that we promised would have a depiction of an allegory of a cave. Plato's Allegory of the Cave. We would have an allegory that depicted the allegory of the cave. And that's coming. But before we get there, I just want to say this. Me and the man got in this terrible beef, okay? And I was like, man, this guy, I guarantee this guy started drinking again. Something's wrong, This guy's having troubles. But whatever. It didn't bother me. But it just kind of gnawed on me. But we got into this thing, and he brought it up, and he started this crap about, did you see? He said he was like reading his Yahoo on his phone. He was reading the Yahoo, and he said, deaf people like being deaf, want to be deaf, and are proud of their deafness. And I was like, okay, that's great, Hey, I'm down with that, From the beginning to the end, everybody could be what they want, and I would be proud if I had no choice. If I had one leg, I'd be proud of the one-legged. I heard the man say one time, and this is as an aside, I heard the man say one time, he was stepping in the shower, and he says, I'm proud to be of the little penis. So, if you really want to go there, that's the kind of thing. If you want to be proud of something, if you could be proud of being of the little penis, have a little penis, that would be bad. But, if you're proud, that's good. So it's kind of like a linear. But I said, so good, they're happy. But the man is much more conservative to the point of libertarian, and I'm much more liberal because I chopped off my balls. we transversed. One became more liberal, one became more positive. I guess because this fight we started to have, he says he didn't think I understood it. I didn't. I was like, good, the deaf people, more power to the deaf people. They're so happy to be deaf. I'm so glad for them. But he said no, because the man, he says, they have these cochlear implants. Cochlear. I said, cochlear? Can they do anything about my missing gonads? Cochlear over here. Can they do something about my missing gonads? He said, no, it's not about missing gonads. Cochlear implants help deaf people to hear. It's a cure. Woo! And so all of a sudden I was like, you shouldn't maybe worry about if they have to be cured. That's the position I took, because for some reason, I was more liberal and he was more conservative, but we flip-flopped. But for some reason I said, maybe you shouldn't be worried about it. And he said, when they put in the cochlear implants, then the Cochlear Implant Corporation starts selling advertisements about all these people who could hear for the first time, and they made it really cool, and they were trying to sell these implants, so that they could make a little bit of money. And anyway, so the deaf people, they came out and they said, you shouldn't share those emotional deaf person hears for the first time videos, because it sensationalizes and romanticizes getting to hear for the first time. And I said, so it romanticizes getting to hear for the first time? I don't know. I don't think you can over romanticize getting to hear it for the first time. In my opinion, that's just one dog's humble opinion. Romanticized videos of when the little baby hears his rattle for the first time, or whatever happens. The race car driver hears his motor hum. If somebody said, if they had a video and there's a little girl and she's sitting there and her daddy's standing there, and the little girl looks up and she says, "Daddy, I love you." And the daddy, who's never could hear before, he has cochlear implant, and he could hear a little girl for the first time say, "Daddy, I love you." And that's not a good thing? Whatever. But the man, he looks at me and he says, those people that don't think they should hear for the first time, they're crazy. I said, that's what I'm saying. I was a dog, and I was saying, that's what I'm saying. And he's like, the man said, well, what kind of argument are we getting in? And so we started an argument that we weren't really getting an argument. It was horrible. Because, the man, he says, listen, those videos sugarcoat the shock and horror, the sudden flood of sensory perception, it comes upon the person when they don't put that part in the video, the man said. The man, he's a libertarian, so he was siding with the deaf people that didn't want to have, even their children. There's deaf people that don't even let their children get the implants, the cochlear implants. And the man says, it's because, there's videos. Those videos where they say, "Mom, I love you so much" for the first time, and it's so good, and the boy's so happy, and everything's so great. Or here's the crack of the bat for the first time, and he sees Babe Ruth hit a home run at Yankee Stadium, But those videos, the man says, he says they sugarcoat the shock and the horror, a sudden flood of sensory perception. They have a sudden flood. They have a flood of, it's like an orgasm. And you don't want nobody to, you don't want to have an orgasm of sensory perception. But, if hearing "I love you" for the first time, or other examples of whatever it could be, you're hearing, I would say if you could hear Mozart for the first time, or hear a woman have an orgasm for the first time. Those were two things I would want to hear. But whatever, that's just me. Some of these deaf people, they're saying, as a dog, I'm saying, they don't want to hear it. They should be forced to hear it. I'm not trying to say that, but I'm just like, I'm the side of, you should hear it. Believe me, you should hear, a Wagner. That first thing where the Bugs Bunny and Porky Pig did a little kind of an opera to the Wagner video. You should hear that Wagner video just one time. It's so beautiful. And why would you want to say, hey, listen, I don't want to hear this Beatles song. You know that famous Beatles song, Yesterday? I don't even want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it for the first time, let alone another time, And that was the problem. Me and the man, I think we were on the same side. Then we got off the same side. Then we were back on the same side, and we started arguing over the argument. And that was, when an argument gets that bad, then everybody's in trouble. But, I forget if it was me or the man who said, deaf people get mad because it shouldn't be thought of as a medical disability to be cured, It should be thought of as a cultural identity. It shouldn't be a medical procedure type of thing. You should be ready, willing, and able to say, hey, whatever's for whatever. I want to be deaf because I don't want to hear anything you've been hearing. And that's my deaf, identity and my deaf culture. We have eliminated a lot of the crapola. So, if we miss Wagner or we miss Einstein, whatever, you'd still know Einstein's theory of relativity. You couldn't hear Wagner, though. You couldn't hear Yesterday. You couldn't hear a woman have an orgasm. So, that's on you. Whatever, that's the deaf. And I don't know, but they should, at the 18, 19 years old, when the deaf people, they should make the decision for themselves, and they should make them listen to one thing. If I was going to say one unlibertarian thing as a dog, and I think the man would agree with me, if I was going to say one unlibertarian thing, once the 18 or 19-year-olds, they are reached that level where you could play them, a person having an orgasm, it would be gender, appropriate. They would have an orgasm display. It's just like, you have to listen to 10 seconds of this, and then if you decide you don't want to hear nothing else, or this ever again, we're going to shut it down. You won't have to listen to nothing. And that's the one thing they should probably do. That would eliminate the whole problem of should the deaf hear or not. They should just have one little tiny, but that would be a compromise. It's okay. If the deaf people don't want to do it, that's fine. As a dog, that's what I finally said. If the deaf people don't want to listen to Wagner or somebody have an orgasm, that's their business, and they should be whatever. Maybe they're wrong. How would you know? And how could you not add something to it? You're like, hey, guys, I don't want my food to taste so good. Could you make it a little more bland? I feel so good and energized the next day when I eat your food, but it's so tasty. It makes me, happy. I don't want it to be so tasty anymore. So tone it down a little bit with the spices and the chef abilities to make food taste good. Tone it down, because we're not, that's the thing, but this is the problem. Contractually, we have to end the 5-part symposium right here. Contractually. It wasn't we got snookered. But what we're going to do is we're going to say this, that the allegory of the cave is similar. There's an allegory describing the other allegory, but trying to take a veer and go into a new branch, a new direction of allegory. So you have the allegory. The deaf people is not an allegory, and it's not an allegory that deaf people are struggling to choose if they should hear or not. But there is an allegory in some kind of parents who decide for the children if they should, and then the PTA's got to try to come over and say, you got to let the kid listen to one thing. You could pick it. Maybe they should listen to Yankee Doodle Dandy. That would be good for everybody, But, or maybe they don't have to do anything. Maybe it's everybody's free choice, and that'll be the best. I think the man won. The man won this thing where it was the libertarian view of you got to let, whether it's Plato, whether it's Socrates, whether it's Yogi Berra, it doesn't matter. It's everybody's choice. They got to do their own thing. But the allegory and the deaf people, the parents especially, who wouldn't let their children have an operation or sample size or whatever it would be, a little demonstration, but it's okay. It's their choice, and that's the main thing. So I hope, as a dog, I hope you've enjoyed this 5-part series, and you will tune in the next time. Listen, we had some ups and downs. We got off to a pretty good start. We kind of bombed in the 3rd and 4th, but then on the 5th, we picked it up, and we actually delivered what we said we were going to do. An allegory wrapped inside an allegory.